rules with an iron fist. When if you made a mistake on the field, the smartest move for you to make was to exit the field stage left. No, go nowhere near Sean Payton and pray he doesn't come and hunt you down on the sideline. Yeah. He would strongly encourage you, if you know what I mean, to get off the field. And a very expletive-laden commentary. So, I mean, that's the first thing. Secondly is that the discipline. There used to be a such thing to where Sean Payton didn't tolerate guys who would jump off sides. And I believe they had double-digit penalties yesterday. There was a time when you were afraid to do that with Sean Payton as your head coach. And finally, I really want to know what happened to the guy that almost like he didn't tolerate a certain type of player. There used to be a term called a Sean Payton type of guy. It was a guy like a Scott Fujita, Scott Shanley, Jonathan Vilma, Jari Evans, Marcus Colston. You could point out a guy and say, yep, that's a Sean Payton type of player. Roman Harper. You know, those were guys who, they were just hard-nosed, smart, tough football players. Mm-hmm. And now it seems like we've changed that dramatic. You know, Junior Gillette wouldn't have pulled that type of stunt on the old Sean Payton. Brandon Cooks doesn't come out and voice his opinion or his displeasure with the old Sean Payton. And it just seems as if after Bountygate, Sean Payton lost more than a year. He lost his gut. His intestinal fortitude is missing somewhere, and by God, I hope they find it. Because now they no longer train in the sweltering heat of veterans. Now they train at the Greenbrier. They train in the facility that's a golf course. And, you know, we need more snaps. We need to be the better temperature. What the hell are you telling me? Where is Sean Payton? And one time the guy was wearing some weird, you know, razor-looking spectacles. Man, what are you doing? Where's my coach? And that right there is why I would lose my media credentials, because I would honestly ask him, what happened to you? And that's why Brandon Cooks is able to come out and speak out and say closed mouths don't get fed, or it's a business, so I treat it like a business decision. And by the way, if you want to treat it like a business, you better handle yours. Because dropping not only one touchdown catch, not going all out effort on two other players that could have led to score, yeah, we're going to talk about that. I don't want to continue my rant right now because I got a whole lot more for later. But that's just a sneak preview of what's to come when it comes to Brandon Cooks.
Well, I'm certainly will get into Cooks later because I got into a pretty, I'd call it heated. I mean, it's Twitter. Everybody gets into a heated discussion. You wouldn't talk on to your family how some people talk on Twitter, but we'll get into that a little later.
Or in person.
Definitely in person. Look, I don't know what it is, but for Saints fans, I really feel like there's so many of these post-2009 fans who have barely stepped foot in New Orleans. And while I am not from the 504, as in living there my life, you know, my grandmother lived there. I go there multiple times a year. I mean, I know where stuff is. I'm not the guy who sits in the French Quarter every time he goes to New Orleans. That's just not me. But let me say this. If you said or did most of the things that half of these Saints fans talk and say on Twitter to anybody in New Orleans, stuff would pop off. But when it comes to Twitter, we get these little 140 characters and we just become, and we get so, people just get so offensive with it. That's just the best way to put it. But I'm kind of venting now just because of people on Twitter just think they are the stuff. And I'm like, no, you the same level as me. We both ignorant. Admit you're ignorant. Just enjoy your ignorance and have fun. Gosh. Anyway. Yeah, we'll get into Cooks. I've got my own opinion on Cooks. I will say this. On the stat sheet and in the game, Cooks wasn't able to show up how we expected him to. Now, I will say this, and you ain't allowed to respond to this until later because I'm sure we'll get into an argument later. We're going to have a whole segment just for Cooks. But I'm not mad at Cooks, or I don't blame Cooks for that overthrow, that touchdown that he should have gotten the first quarter. To me, when you got a receiver that's about 4'11", Drew Brees, you got to throw a perfect pass that deep If you throw it as tall as you did and a little outside his arms, T-Rex is not going to reach that pass, so I'm not blaming Cooks. Now, there are some other plays that we're going to blame Cooks on, but especially one that happened within about 3 feet inside the end zone. But anyway, all that aside, what you're saying about Peyton is definitely true. It's not the same aggressive, kill or be killed attitude that we were used to seeing from him. But even with all that aside, this also used to be a more disciplined team. I mean, silly penalties, and Sean Payton talked about this in his post-game presser, 13 penalties by the Saints, which is a pretty high number. I mean, the Saints, sure, we can pick out games in history's past where we think of that, but it was the timing of most of these penalties. It wasn't like, a random 5-yarder. It would be, the Saints get called for like 2 consecutive holding penalties. Stuff like that is just that fundamental, what are you doing type of play that just ruins entire drives. And he stated that that's one of the reasons they got away from the run game, where Tim Hightower was having a lot of success early on. And I was pretty upset that for 2 weeks in a row, we've completely left the run game for whatever reason on games that were very close. I mean, we're not talking about the Falcons game in week 3 where we're almost instantly down 2-3 touchdowns. These are games where it was, 13-11 in the third quarter against Tampa, and we're barely hand the ball off. Stuff like that to me is inexcusable, even with things like, penalties happening.
Another problem that I'm having with Sean Payton in the offense lately is twofold. The first is I don't understand the need for the bouncing around of who's going to call plays. It bothers me. I could understand if for the Greg Williams St. Louis Rams, Los Angeles Rams. Now, for that game, I could understand Payton wanting to call plays. That one I get, but I don't understand the need to not have Pete Carmichael, who I feel like was doing a pretty, admirable job as a play caller. And I mean, if you think about some of the best years in Saints history, especially the 2011 season, Pete Carmichael called the plays. And for all those who haven't called on just yet, that was the record-setting year. I mean, that offense was almost unstoppable until, they ran into San Francisco. And even in that game, it was turnovers and Pierre Thomas leaving the game early that kind of, derailed the Saints. But I digress. The point I want to make is that I don't understand the need for the play calling duties to be shifted the way they are. And secondly, I'm wondering what the hell is going on. Have Les Miles been hired to coach Sean Payton on clock management? Because there are a lot of times that I'm scratching my head being like, okay, what is Sean doing right here? Like, why are you doing this? And it was so Les Miles-esque, and it has been lately. I don't understand the clock management. And Sean Payton is one of the smartest offensive minds in football. So I really don't get what's going on lately. It's almost like it's a complete lapse from everyone. And nobody seems to understand how to pick up the pieces and get it back to how it used to be. It's almost like a relationship that was once upon a time really, really good, and now you see yourself kind of drifting away. You want to stop the slide, but you just can't figure out how. This is a divorce that upcoming because no one knows how to stop the bleeding.
Well, look, I'm not disagreeing with you. I know I made a tweet this past Sunday that said it just seems like I notice more delay of games, at least them happening more often when Sean Payton takes over play calling. I have no stats for that, and I even had a couple of people say, well, they think it happens about the same amount of time, and that's fine. But for me to just randomly notice it, it might be a little bit more. Heck, it might be less than Pete Carmichael. I don't know. But it just seems when I watch Sean Payton lead this offense and calling plays, like there's just not as much, as you were saying, proper management of the time and play clock. And it all comes down to little things. I mean, we remember watching, if anybody owns basically everything that came out after the 2009 season, I've got basically every game, the behind-the-scenes commentary, the Super Bowl, every playoff game. And I rewatch it because I'm a loser and I love nostalgia, and the Saints are everything to me. So if times like Sunday happen, I pop in the Super Bowl game like, yeah, what's up, Indy? What's up? But it's 7 years later. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, if you watch Sean Payton from 2009, that entire season, just how he is on the sidelines, the confidence he has when he calls a play, he would talk to Drew and just say, this one's going for a touchdown. It's whatever. And Drew's like, yeah, I love it. And then they go do it, and bam, big play happens. I don't see that anymore. And I'm not saying that NFL coaches have got Sean Payton all figured out, or he's not effective, or he's not a great offensive mind. I'm not saying any of that. I'm simply saying there's just something missing, and maybe I'm not able to articulate, or even I don't even completely know what it is. But the Saints have to recapture it if we're going to break this whole 7-9 trend. Because here's the thing. Saints fans, and even some of us, Twitter analysts and bloggers, like to say that if the team had more talent, they'd be successful. Or if we had better players here, we'd be doing well. But keep this in mind. Did we not say the same thing when this team was super injured at the beginning of the year? Said after the injuries are better, when we have Rankins, when we have Bro, when we have Ellerby, we're going to make a run. And since they've returned, we've gone, 1-3? So stuff like that. Those are talented players. And I'm not saying that we don't need depth. I mean, we still need a pass rushing defensive end. We still need at least one more starting linebacker. We still need corners. We still need an offensive line overhaul. I'm not denying that that's true. And I'm not saying that better coaching takes this team who might be destined for 6-10, maybe 7-9, and turns them into a 13-3 team. That is not what I'm saying. So don't try to misquote me on that, people listening. But what I am saying is that the 2009 team roster wasn't exactly laden with superstar talent. It wasn't full of Pro Bowlers. The only position that was heavy in terms of Pro Bowlers and best in the game type players was the offensive line and Drew Brees. That's it. I love Marcus Colston. I love the Quiet Storm. There's arguable reasons that he should have made 1 or 2 Pro Bowls, but there's a reason that he has no Pro Bowls, and it's not because Marcus Colston is horrible, just that he was not upper echelon elite. I know I'm going to make a lot of people mad with that comment, but there's a reason none of that happened yet, because of Sean Payton's aggressiveness, his play calling, his ability to know what to call and when. He was able to take advantage of defenses. And you look at the team now on paper, and I know this is a phrase that we all use way too much, but on paper, if you compare this team with no knowledge of records, no knowledge of how they're doing, just stat for stat, scheme for scheme, and looked at us from now to 2009, can you really say that this team is so much worse than the 2009 team? We're not as good, like in certain areas, like the offensive line, which is incredibly important. But it's not like we're lacking talent. Where we had Will Smith, we now have Cameron Jordan. Where we had, it was Roman Harper, Malcolm Jenkins, Darren Sharper, but now we have Jarris Byrd, who has improved this year, he's not Pro Bowl, but he's improved. Kenny Vaccaro, who is playing at a Pro Bowl level, and then Von Bell, who has been a stellar rookie. The more snaps he gets, the better he becomes. Corners were probably better in 2009, but if you really look at it, if we're talking on paper and production, our linebackers are better now than they were in 2009. So take all that into account. This team should not be where they are right now in terms of record. A lot of things have happened to cause that, but I think a lot of it has to do with the coaching and the play calling.
Yeah, no, ma'am. You're definitely going to need some air quickly.
Yeah.
You might want to find a little place across the street. I'll go over there and meet you there. Yes, ma'am.
You got an errand to run?
No, my man. I'm out and about as we do the show, and
That's cool.
Her and her daughter are stranded. They have a flat tire.
Don't know
anything about putting a tire together. So I told them if they just go across the street, we'll try air. If that doesn't work, I'll change it for them because it's raining out.
Oh, man, well, I appreciate you being helpful, man. There's too many people who would just drive by in this day and age.
Yeah, man, I can't do that. That would be wrong of me, and I mean, you never know. You just pay it forward. That's all.
Yeah, definitely.
So with that being said, man, let me get to your point about Von Bell and how his maturation. It actually, to me, the maturation of Von Bell has done something crazy that nobody thought was possible. Because when Von Bell was drafted, the first thing many of us said was, okay, bye Jarris Byrd. But what Von Bell's maturation has actually done is it slid Jarris Byrd over to more of a strong safety type of role, and he's actually playing really well in that role. Now, Kenny Vaccaro being missing kind of, kind of hurts that just a little bit because Roman Harper, God bless him, he just can't do what he once was able to do. He's still